Last week, one of the things I mentioned in the current events version of 5 Stupid Things was a report recently issued by the government of Norway that reported that they had not had a single incident of police killing a civilian since 2006. It's been 9 years since cops in Norway killed somebody. And I also looked into things a little further and found that from 2003, I believe, from 2005. From 2005 until 2014, there had only been a total of 14 deaths in police custody in Norway. And for the last 2 years, there haven't been any deaths in police custody in Norway. And I contrasted this with the fact that in the month of July here in the U.S., 5 black women died in police custody. And I thought, well, isn't this an appalling statistic? And a few people kind of grumbled about this in the comments, and I got one private message from somebody on Facebook who had a real problem with that comparison. So I have blotted out this person's name. I won't embarrass them to that extent, but I am going to read to you what this person wrote to me about the comparison that I made between Norway and the United States in terms of deaths in police custody. So this is what this viewer and I guess former subscriber of mine had to say. Hey, Steve. I've been watching your 5 Stupid Things videos on YouTube and have been absolutely loving them for some time now, but what you did on today's August 10th episode was one of the most misleading things I've ever seen you or anyone else do. You compare the civilian deaths while in police custody in Norway to the civilian deaths in police custody in the U.S. as if the population is exactly the same. The population of Norway is about 5 million people, yet you talk about their rate of civilians dying in custody as being so great compared to the U.S. without even mentioning that there is 347 million people more in the United States. Do you think that maybe the immense difference in population between Norway and the U.S. would explain why the United States has killed 5 women in police custody last month when there is 347 million more people in this country? Do the math, Steve. You're not stupid. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that the degree that you went to as far as misleading your viewers was one of the very worst, if not the worst one I've ever seen anyone in the media do. And you claim to be the guy that supposedly fights shit like that. Unsubscribe button, here I come, with great disappointment, and then this person signs their name. So, that's the message I got. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this former subscriber of mine up on that challenge, and I am going to do the math. And let's just see what we come up with. By the way, the current population of the United States, according to the most recent figures I could find, is 318 million, not 347 or 350 million, whatever that figure was that this former viewer of mine came up with. I don't know where they came up with that number, but the current population is under 320 million, not over 340 million. But as you're about to see, that really wouldn't make that much of a difference. Here's what I decided to do. Let me show you my screen here so you can judge for yourself. You can see what I'm doing. Here's what I have done. First, this here is the report on the deaths in police custody in Norway. It is from Norwegian First News, and it was released on, as you can see, May 27th, 2015. This is the deaths in police custody report. The report that reported that no Norwegian police have actually killed anyone, which would mean, the police, a cop shooting someone, let's say, and killing them. That's what that would mean. That hasn't happened at all since 2006. That was a much more recent report. That's why I happened to mention it in my 5 Stupid Things video. But this deaths in police custody report is from earlier this year. 14 deaths in police custody since 2005. And to find the equivalent figure in the United States, I went to the Justice Department and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And this is a report, this is the most recent data I could find on arrest-related deaths from 2003 to 2009. And I'll link all of these resources in the description box if you want to look into this stuff yourself. But this is a report from the Bureau of Justice Statistics about arrest-related deaths reported in the United States. I also wanted to know the average populations for the U.S. and Norway, and I'm using the years 2005 to 2009. Those are the years I'm going to compare, because as you can see, the Norwegian numbers begin in 2005 and they run all the way to 2013, but the Bureau of Justice Statistics numbers are only from 2003 to 2009. So I'm going to take the beginning year of the Norwegian numbers, 2005, and the end year of the U.S. numbers from the BJS, 2009, and those will be the years I will compare. So I wanted to know the U.S. population from 2005 to 2009, and I wanted to get as accurate as I could get it, so I wanted to do the average population, and for that I just went to Google, and Google gives you a nice handy interactive graph, so I can run my cursor over the graph of the U.S. population, and I can say what was the U.S. population in 2005, which I get as 295.5 million. What was the U.S. population in 2009? The end of the comparison period, 306.8 million. So I just average those two together and I get an average of the U.S. population from 2005 to 2009. I do the same thing for Norway. On this Google graph, 2005, 4.6 million, 2009, 4.829 million. So those are my numbers. That's how I got my numbers. I went ahead and put everything in just a little quick notepad file. So I have everything in front of you that you can look at right there. These are the statistics available from the U.S. and Norway from 2005 to 2009. And I added up the number of arrest-related deaths from 2005 to 2009 in the U.S. according to these BJS statistics. And the number that I got from 2005 to 2009, the number of reported arrest-related deaths in the U.S. was 3,513. That number in Norway, again using this source, and just you start counting at 2005 and you stop counting at 2009 and you come up with 6. So those are the figures. In the U.S. from 2005 to 2009, 3,513 arrest-related deaths. Norway, deaths in police custody during the same period, 6. The average total population from the U.S. for that period was 301.2 million. The average total population of Norway in that same period was 4.7 million. So let's do some math, shall we? Let me get my little calculator out here, because remember, I'm an English major, not a math major. I can't do this shit in my head. So first, let's see how much bigger the population of the U.S. is than Norway. And to do that, we will just divide 301.2 by 4.7 equals, and you can see 64, we'll round up and say 64.1. So the population of the United States is 64.1 times larger than that of Norway. Okay, see there? Now you can read it. Let me make the window a little bigger there. Okay, so the population is 64.1 times larger. Now let's see how many times larger the arrest-related deaths in the U.S. are than the Norway deaths in police custody. So we will take 3,513 and we will divide that by 6 and we get 585. U.S. arrest-related deaths, 585.5 times larger than Norway deaths in police custody. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but 585.5 is a significantly larger figure than 64.1. If we are going to say, as my former viewer did, that the disparity between the deaths in police custody or the arrest-related deaths in the U.S. compared to the deaths in police custody in Norway is due to the population, then we would expect to see the U.S. arrest-related deaths to be in the neighborhood of 64 times that of those in Norway, if the only reason it's bigger is because of the bigger population. But instead we see that the arrest-related deaths in the U.S. are 585.5 times larger than those in Norway. Now, just for the sake of let's just have some fun and see what the number would be if it was only larger in the U.S. because of the difference in population. And to get that number, I'm going to take the Norwegian figure of deaths in police custody, and I'm going to multiply it by 64, which is the difference in the population. So we have estimated U.S. arrest-related deaths if population difference were only factor. Let's just say that. Fuck it. Okay. So we take the number of deaths in police custody in Norway, 6, and we multiply that by the number of times larger that the U.S. population is than the Norwegian population, 64.1, and we get 384. So if the only factor making the U.S. number larger than the Norwegian number were the difference in our populations, which is significant, then yes, we would expect the U.S. to have far more arrest-related deaths than Norway. But the number we would expect, if it was purely because of the population difference, is 384.6. And as you can see, the number is actually 3,513. So I did the math. Anything else? And look, I know that what I've done here is a very crude comparison. It's very simplistic. Those of you who are watching who are more mathematically or statistically minded than I am could probably come up with a much more precise, much more elegant and useful comparison than I have done here. The only point I was trying to make is that my former subscriber did not have a point when they said that, well, the disparity between the deaths in police custody between the U.S. and Norway is just because of the disparity in our populations. Yes, the United States has a much larger population than the nation of Norway does. 64 times larger, in fact. But that difference in the population is not an excuse and is not sufficient to explain the difference in the arrest-related deaths in the U.S. versus Norway. 585 times more arrest-related deaths. 64 times more population. Not 120, not 130 times more arrest-related deaths. Not 300 or 400. 585 times more arrest-related deaths in the U.S. than in Norway. Not just because we have a larger population, not by a long shot, not even close. The fact that we have to face as Americans, and the fact that many of us Americans are so reluctant to face that we will reach for any excuse not to face it, is that people in this country have a much greater chance, a shockingly greater chance of dying at the hands of police or while in police custody than people in other developed nations. We also have to face the fact that in the United States, if you are a person of color, you are far more likely to die at the hands of police or in police custody than white people. We are a nation that has a serious problem with police brutality, and racism is a huge part of that police brutality. The two issues are inseparable from one another. And you cannot excuse this problem by saying, well, other countries have it, but it just looks worse here because we have a larger population. No. It is not the larger population. It is an actual problem that needs to be addressed, that has to do with the way we train police officers, with the culture of police officers, and with the racism that permeates this country and has from the day it was founded. And the longer we ignore it, the longer we look away from it, the longer we distract ourselves from it, the longer it will be a problem, and the worse that problem will get. How dare you or anyone try to write this problem off by chalking up the disparities between the US and Norway to the disparities in their populations and tell me to do the math when you obviously had not done the fucking math yourself. I did the math. You should have done the math.